Well, hello, my name is Justin Berube, and my policy capstone is on the preparation and anticipation for brain-computer interfaces. Are we ready? First, I will explain what is a brain-computer interface, or BCI, and how mature the technology is now. Then what issues should we anticipate when BCIs are mainstream? And I will propose policy options for these issues and finish with my final recommendations for the Canadian government to prepare for these devices and be a leader in the technology. So what is a BCI? BCI is a computer-based system that detects signals and activity from the brain and now put them to a device for the use to carry out an action by the user. Essentially, it is a new way for the user to interact with technology, similar to how we use the keyboard and mouse for a computer or a finger and a touch screen with our smartphones. There are two types of BCIs. There's the invasive BCI, which is surgically implanted into your head to receive the most direct and accurate brain signals, making them the most advanced and reliable BCIs. They're commonly used to help persons with disabilities such as Parkinson's disease, ALS, paralysis, communication disorders, and amputees. And they're widely used in research and have been developed for groundbreaking technology, including the ability to communicate brain to brain, wireless BCIs, controlling limbs for people with have amputated limbs, faster communication methods, and there's even the ability to control an animal. And then ultimately to develop a better understanding of the brain, possibly paving the way for human augmentation. Second, there's a non-invasive BCI, which is a device that doesn't require any physical implants into your body and often uses a helmet or a cap with various sensory nodes to detect brain activity. So it lowers the barrier of entry to use this type of BCI, making it very consumer friendly for anyone to use. And thus there's a lot of interest in the private sector. These devices have been used to control drones, for example, or collect brain data for medical and neurotherapy and monitor mental health. And there's a lot of activity in the tanker hacker space. So as exciting as these devices are, government and society as a whole needs to anticipate the issues that they can cause. BCI devices will greatly affect the healthcare system, requiring new medical devices to regulate. There are privacy, security, and ethical concerns to consider over the use of brain data collected from these devices. And government also needs to protect consumers from market failures. When it comes to healthcare, Health Canada handles the medical device regulations. These regulations only apply to devices for medical use and follows a classification system based on risk of the patient, primarily physical risks. Mental effects from medical devices are not directly mentioned in the legislation, and this lack of clarity reveals a regulatory gap for medical BCI devices and their risk assessment, disregarding the possibility of mental behavior changes to the user from these devices. So Health Canada is looking to try to address this through an advanced therapeutic products, or ATP pathway, which is a regulatory sandbox that tries to address unique concerns on very advanced medical devices. Now, this pathway can build regulations for specific technologies such as BCI, but at this time, it's unclear how successful and effective it will be, as we're only launching a pilot for this regulatory pathway later this year for AI devices. When it comes to consumer BCI devices on the non-medical devices, they will not fall under medical device regulations. This means surgical implanted invasive BCIs, if used for an enhanced augmentation, and not for a medical purpose, are not clear on how they will be regulated. Meanwhile, consumer non-invasive BCIs are not regulated whatsoever. So it is clear that Health Canada regulations need enhanced guardrails to address these issues. We store our deepest secrets in our minds, and this technology can also expose them. So this raises concerns in security and privacy on our sensitive data. Sophisticated attacks on a BCI user could put them in mind games that hides the hacker and makes the user more cooperative to give their private information. It has been found that you can reveal the user's PIN numbers, their bank information, who they know, their date of birth, and the location of the user. So along with these security concerns, current BCI software also grants full access to brain signals as they are outsourced to the application. This allows for easy access to brain data for third parties and developers. Well, at least researchers are working on securing brain data from hackers and locking brain signals, but there are no standard security protocols for users and developers to follow. In regards to consumer protection, if we put devices in our bodies, we as the consumer expect to have a long-lasting support for those devices. And yet we have cases like Second Sight. Second Sight is a company that specializes in retinal implants that provides artificial vision for the blind. Despite the life-changing technology being a success in restoring sight for these people, the company had financial troubles and dropped support for their devices. Not only were clients left without therapy, but also no support when the devices malfunction, nor clear guidance on how to remove it for other medical procedures. One of those users, as pictured here, was not able to check for a brain tumor through an MRI scan, since it would be dangerous to go in a giant magnet with a device in your head. To this day, he's not entirely sure if he has a brain tumor, and many other people have problems where they have a device that doesn't work inside their heads. This case brings questions on long-term device support. Should we expect BCI devices to be supported as long as our smartphones? Should we expect to have surgery in our heads every 3 to 4 years to get an upgrade? I'm not thrilled to that idea. And what happens if a company goes out of business and abandons support for the product? And then there's ethical concerns. With the ability to access our brain's information, it is possible to learn of one's mental state and predict their behaviors. This raises ethical concerns on the use of brain data. AI is being used to improve performance of BCI devices, opening up to algorithmic biases in machine learning. Some users might use a BCI differently than what the programmers intended in their AI, causing some problems and rift between users and the BCI device. For agency and identity, how can we protect the user's agency and self-identity? BCI devices have been found to alter some users' behaviors, their identity, and even their reality. And knowing that technology such as virtual reality is addictive, what happens if somebody is so immersed in a BCI technology that they get lost in it? And then there's the ethical questions of equality. When people are augmenting themselves, should we expect 2 classes of people, one without BCI and one with incredible advantages with a BCI device? And how do we manage future concerns that we can't even imagine right now? To add further on these concerns, there is a growing interest from big tech companies such as Meta, Neuralink, Microsoft, Alphabet, and pushing for neuromarketing. Through neuromarketing, big tech and private companies are finding new ways to exploit consumer data, fueling their ever-growing data economy. Now governments are looking to address these concerns, with Chile being the extreme example of amending their constitution to specifically protect brain data of its citizens. So what options do we have for BCIs and preparing for that? Well, we can remain with the status quo until a decision is made through the courts or public pressure after the damage is done. We could also update the medical device regulations for Health Canada to include consumer BCI devices. But should we really leave it to Health Canada to really regulate all BCR devices? Are they the right department to address societal questions beyond their medical expertise? And then the government in Canada could also provide funding, so Canada could be the leader of the ethical use of BCI, a similar approach which was taken with AI development. We can also update privacy laws, specifically PEPIDA, to define and protect brain data, making it clear what third parties can do and can't do with the private data. And then there's also the option to just ban all these devices altogether. And we need an option as well where the government and industry experts can discuss new issues that arise, preparing for unforeseen consequences. Taking these options into consideration, here are my policy recommendations. With BCI being an emerging technology that needs more time to be understood, a neurotech expert panel of researchers and industry experts can advise both Health Canada and ISED on BCI advances in brain data privacy. Along with this, amending the Privacy Act, PEPIDA, needs to recognize brain data, have enforceable measures when data is compromised or misused, and have companies clearly inform users how they will use their data. Now, ISED is looking to make changes in privacy laws now, making it the opportune time for this government to be proactive on this issue. Government needs to provide funding as well to direct research and development of ethical BCIs, making Canada a responsible leader in this technology. And through Health Canada's ATPA pathway, BCI guidelines need to be assessed and analyzed if additional regulations are required. It is important that we as a society get this right. There will be less room for error in the BCI space compared to what we saw with smartphones and social media, especially when it comes to our most valuable possession, our thoughts. Thank you very much for attending, and I'm happy to answer any questions or topics you would like me to expand on.